Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Folks, my town where I live, you know, our personal living space, was once a rural, quiet, white cow town. There were perhaps 1-2% of people who weren't Europeans of some kind. Maybe that many. Now, the other day, your humble narrator took a perusal around the streets, and I noticed that there were more colored people on the street during the day than there were whites. Now, I'm wondering precisely what we're supposed to celebrate about that. You see, the thing is that when our town was a small white town, it was lawful. It was orderly. It was clean. The riffraff stayed to themselves and kept their activities to a recommended minimal level. Or the sheriff went down there and put his boot up their ass. Now, we are up to our neck in the utter filth of the world, and crime has went through the roof, theft, an old man's house next door that he died, the bank has gotten it back. I know that it has bums and junkies living in and out of it now. Lovely. You see, folks, we've been enriched. Now, it is absolutely beyond us how any person can look at this area and believe that between 1980 and now we have been enriched. Have they lost their mind? Now, what we have found is that most of these people who claim that we are enriched are carpetbagger scum who came from places like California and Oregon, Vermont. They're super liberals. They're snake huggers. These are the exact sorts of people who have told your humble narrator on more than one occasion that I can't possibly do as well as I do at gardening and all this natural, naturey type stuff because fascism. We cannot do good at naturey stuff, Gaia, Mother Gaia stuff, because fascism. If we had $1 for every time we have heard this off Facebook, we would not ever, ever worry for economic means again. We could fund the movement we want fully to victory. Okay. Seriously. If we could get 10 cents for every time one of these people says, but you garden so well, and they just can't understand how I don't like black people, how I don't like diversity, how I, it's our mind almost spins. We encounter this and we say to ourselves, this is insane. These people have fled diversity to some of the whitest areas in the world and now are trying to push diversity on us. I'll give you an example. Today on Facebook, there we are, we're reading away, and this lady promotes Ubuntu. Now, we had thought she had meant the operating system, so we suggested FreeBSD instead. It's original Unix, it's more pure, you can do more, the code's more flexible, right? Just lots of things. It's more of a set piece and just a lot of, okay, right? Right. Well, they actually had meant the philosophy of Ubuntu, and it's some garbage about some Swahili peaceful utopic matriarchic village, where everyone looks into each other and sees their worth. Ooh. And we asked the simple question of, where in Africa does anyone behave this way? And we listed off many places, Liberia, Chad, just all these civil wars. And then we asked the next question of why would we care about this African nonsense when we have a perfectly good functional culture in the West that's solid and whole and complete, and that goes all the way back to the Ice Age, and that is perfectly enriching on its own terms without any of this barbarous nonsense Swahili gibberish, you know? And then these people responded back, and to which we replied, I mean, are you seriously saying that you want to bring the way these Africans behave towards each other in Africa to my small town? Snake huggers. Snake huggers. God damn. These people seriously tried to maintain these signaling, phony, hypocrite bastards. They think that these cannibal refugees would be an enriching thing. Okay, that's because you see, I noticed, I looked at the maps. Where they live is up at the ritzy end of town where, I don't know, it's weird. It's like there's more police protection and less colored people. Now, where we live, oh, that's where the enrichment comes down to, you see. Now, the very fact is, folks, is I know I cannot be the only guy who gets tired of this. You know, yeah, you know what? I like conservationism. I like Mother Earth. I'm all about the outdoors and hiking and camping, but I'm also a nationalist, and I'm also a racialist and an identitarianist. That's just what it is. I don't know what to tell you. I'm very outdoorsish and hillbilly, Chucky Chuck, back with nature-ish, you know? But I'm also fairly well readish. I mean, I don't understand why this. It's like they can't understand that people are not actually these like little bits on TV. Like, you know, I guess I just don't fit into their parts. Is that it? Is that it? I'm, you know, we're not facilely sliding into different little categories for them. These people are so dim-witted they don't understand that we control fully who has any access to our labors, fully, and they and their fields get no say about it. It's it's really ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? I mean, see, I don't see some. See, this is the thing: is this town did not used to be like this, and about the last say 5 years, it's been super overran. And try to be a right wing, normal hillbilly dude and give away stuff on Facebook. We will write up free lettuce. Free lettuce. Okay? The response. What kind? The kind you don't have to pay for. You know? The kind you can get a whole shopping bag full of for free if you take it home and clean it and sort it out yourself. Right? Now, to most of y'all, that seems about like enough, doesn't it? Now, some of these folks, one lady told me that if the food was grown by a racist, there's a chance that. So that's why the crows hate me, man, because, you know, they're black and they get all the food, you know. It's easier to feed the crows than it is to feed people off Facebook. That's how muffed up these carpetbaggers have reality. Do you understand? They literally, you know, and they just don't know what to do when a fella like myself just says, "Hey, listen, you take that ninny nanny yak 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 guilt niggity nagga wave your finger at me nonsense woman, and you take it back into your kitchen with your fucking children. You know, I'm an adult man, and I'll say whatever is lawfully allowed to say up until right the time I decide I don't wish to say it anymore." You know? Again, I can't be the only adult man who has this feeling like this. This is ridiculous. And this isn't against all women. Let me make this clear to you. There are a lot of women who are really cool, you know? There are even moderately left-wing dingbats that are pretty cool, you know? They don't yak, 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 every adult man in public like they're little children, you know? But everyone knows the ones I'm talking about. Those packs. You encounter them in packs, in groups of 5 and 6 and 9 and 10 on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right? And if you say like a picture comes up of, I'm fat, I'm proud, I'm big, I'm this, it's like you're disgusting, go lose some weight. Okay? But if you say that, or if we say that, or if anyone says that, down comes the wrath of the social justice warriors. You know? I mean, it's getting to be ridiculous, folks. To the point where, again, these sustainable city fools who wanted free food, do you understand? I was willing to give them free leftovers so they could feed it to their goats and the chickens and whatever, right? If a Nazi helps feed the chickens, these people are this insane. They literally tried to make us basically try to make us agree that Swahili Ubuntu nonsense. We had to agree to that like as some kind of spiritual guidepost, or we weren't good enough to give them food. It's like you do understand that we have many other options in food free giveaways, like the local charity, 2 churches down the street, the food shelter down here, right? I mean, they're not exactly, you know, right? I mean, lettuce is easy to grow and it uses up our time. It's so silly that these carpetbagger people think that they should be able to browbeat us and force us to give them our charity, our goodwill, our benefits at the same time. Like, oh, I see. You know, it truly is. It it's angering, really. I mean, I know I don't seem angry, but it is angering. It's sort of like, who are you that I should even have to address your first world problems, really? You know, I mean, they are first world problems. You know, I mean, can you imagine anyone in, say, any of the Boers in South Africa right now? If I would say, "Hi guys, I got a whole bunch of lettuce. Would you like to be stuffing it in their face? They're starving," or some of the poor people in the slums of Argentina who are pretty white looking to me. They look pretty German and Italian, but they look pretty poor. Or them poor people up in Appalachia. Do you think they'd be asking me dumb questions like where exactly the lettuce came from? Or do you think they'd be stuffing it into their face? And make it clear. Only thing that had been done is they come pick it up, even get it out of the ground for them and put it in the bag for them. So basically, they just have to stop at my fence out here, call me right when they was there, and pick it up. Hand to God. Oh, folks, how y'all doing? Now, folks, the thing about growing gardens, getting crops growing really well, is that you have to have a certain understanding of the rules, of the fundamental sort of marshaling of organization that's required to get into line with nature, right? You just have to. If you don't, what you do will fail. That's that. Now, the same idea applies equally, probably doubly, to any other human activity. Okay? Political, social, economic, right? Now, generally speaking, and while there are exceptions to this, the general rule is going to be that intelligently thought out activity, sort of planned out on whatever scale, is going to produce better results than haphazard, sort of flying around fluttering at random activity. Can we all basically agree that that's true? Okay. Now, if you agree that this is true, it seems elementary that almost any other activity, including politics, is going to require this exact sort of organization. Now, generally with organizations, the kind that are successful have roots in the normal daily people that you wish to include in the organization's activities, of course, lives, their real lives, that add some meaning to their lives, that sort of build upon, the goods in their lives, okay? Or that the sacrifices that the organization entails are worthwhile because they're in the cause of future goods or present goods that are, worthy of these sacrifices, you see? Now, the kind that are unsuccessful are the kind that fester as little subgroups and, sort of degenerate into secret clubs or my secret clubhouse kind of situation, right? That is not successful. Successful is a mass movement based on the hearts and desires of the common people that brings them social benefits, economic benefits, political benefits. That's real organization that's successful. Now that's what real nationalism is about, is this kind of successful mass-based organization based on what real majority white people in the Western world happen to want. This seems elementary, that since the Republican and Democratic parties won't give us what we want, then we need our own organization in this case. Thus, to organize people to make them wish to come from these two parties, we have to have a set of principles or ideas that will make them wish to come to us. The most fundamental of these ideas is that the common good, the life of the people, is more important than any of this liberal individual happiness garbage. From there should be a proclamation of the idea that, honesty, frugality, dedication, respect, these are important values that we value for their own sake because they create a healthy, functional, good society where people have healthy interactions with each other. Okay, that we also value courage, honor, okay, these important things, that these other parties only give lip service to when they're profitable or when they'll get votes. We should promote these as values that should be promoted in the home. For that matter, nationalists should loudly proclaim that we are the defenders of the hearth, the heritage, and the homes of our people against any outside force, whether it be economic, whether it be social, whether it be political, mass immigration, diversity, tolerance. Whoosh, we are the bulwark that will keep them out of the majority people's homes and allow their families to grow in safety. You see, this is a much more positive message than the failed organizations which have degenerated into private clubs push. It's much more positive, and it has the potential to be a mass movement message, the message of people that say, yes, it's important that our will, our wishes, our wants be done, and to hell with all of this liberal mancy-pancy economic garbage. Economies exist to serve the people. The people do the work that creates the economy. That's the truth. That's another pillar that nationalists should stand upon. No, no, no. We'll simply issue the money as we need to as a function of commerce. Simple as that. Interest-free greenbacks. Interest-free greenbacks. Moreover, nationalists should be firmly upon the idea of accountable leadership, proper leadership with real authority, but accountable leadership. Those who wish to lead have put their head upon the block, and failure has one outcome and one outcome only, and it isn't leaving office. Now, those are real fundamental differences between nationalism and these others. And I believe that if they're pushed forward in the right way, that they can be the basis for a real mass movement where people will say, yes, this is more important to me than this garbage nonsense these two parties, the media, the PC people talk about, and we can actually organize majority whites against diversity, against tolerance, against equality, against all of this evil commie code word gibberish that means against our own demise. That would be the best thing that nationalists could do, the most useful thing they could do. It would surely be more useful than growing carrots. But like growing carrots, getting to this mass movement has rules and they must be understood. And part of it is to become the voice of a mass movement, you must understand the heart and the soul of the people you're speaking for. Thank you. Hello, folks. How y'all doing today? Now, folks, the liberal chickens are coming home to roost, and I'm wondering who will clean up the droppings. For decades, the liberal lunatics have appeased the black masses in the urban inner city, and for decades, the blacks have steadily become more violent, barbarous, and retrograde. Now, here I'd like to point out that we could substitute Muslim or most any brown horde for black, and the effect is much the same. The liberals have for decades insisted that this entire phenomena is caused by structural racism and patriarchy and other inane nonsense isms of all sorts of various stripes and kinds. The simple short is that it is our fault. Whitey did it all. Since it is an axiom of their belief system, such as it is, that no colored equal can be held equally accountable for their own failure, and thus evil white male people had to have caused their problems. See, it's so simple. Now, this is their actual logic. Now, the truth is that for decades it has been patently obvious that the problem is the blacks themselves. The problem is the insane social engineering experiment called welfare. And frankly, the source of the entire problem is the liberal do gooders who have no clue about how reality actually works. The reality is that while white males of the working and middle class mainly pay for this failed experiment, such as it is, the politically correct subversives have ended up gaining a voting bloc to use as a battering ram against traditional society morals and values. In essence, what has happened is that these liberal do-gooders and their minority voters have banded together to make Whitey pay for them to beat Whitey down. It's very simple. These three factors, the barbarian blacks, the idiotically contrived welfare state, and the clueless liberal white yuppie, have conspired, frankly, to destroy the Western world and replace it with a 2.0 version of itself that is realistically impossible. Their utopian matriarchy is not in line with reality and thus must of necessity implode. You see, it is impossible, as all viable societies are, have been, and will always be patriarchal to some extent. They always have hierarchies. This is just reality. People have differing abilities. And they always will rely upon authority and respect for elders, traditions, and values. This is simply how it is. Societies without these qualities disintegrate quickly. Thus, the lunatic liberals have conspired to destroy, but they have no possibility of ever creating anything in the place of that which they have destroyed, and destroyed they have. We've seen this insanity let loose on society since sometime in the late 50s, early 60s, when subversive liberals, Marxists, communists actually, took over the media academia and started to enforce their perverse worldview and values upon the rest of us through legislation and social conditioning. It accelerated in the 70s and 80s as these liberal, egalitarian, Marxists, again, tree-hugging, clueless fools entered the halls of power in force and began to write public policy that enforced their inane, insane, ridiculous, colorblind worldview upon the rest of us. It has reached the point where the brake no longer functions and the train is doomed, just chugging along at terminal velocity. This can be shown by the fact that in at least one country in the Western world, a openly subversive communist has been given his own personal named holiday. I reference, of course, Martin Luther King, the famous American communist subversive. This holiday was put into place because of riots and chimp outs. These riots and chimp outs that we see in the streets are merely the symptoms of an internal disease. This internal disease, of course, was the first rumblings of political correctness, enforced egalitarianism, enforced tolerance, and the benefits of diversity. Those that accept these dogmatic tenets of the death pact called modernity are sick, morally and spiritually sick, since all of those terms, political correctness, egalitarianism, tolerance, diversity, in practical application mean less Western white male society and more urban inner city culture, more ghetto thug culture, as well as more never-ending new citizens from the most alien, barbarous, and poor, wretched, vile places imaginable. Again, all this without end until we, the majority, are a minority in our own nations, and until we have no power over the nation our fathers built, and then we can be simply disposed of like unwanted house guests. Verily, only those with no life and who are near upon death could be so willfully careless about the survival of their kind or the future of their own person and children. Now, to put all this in perspective, the people of the West tolerate these chimp outs because they're afraid to be called a word: racist, fascist, xenophobic. By other people on the left who are physically weak and effeminate. What does that make them exactly? They sit around and watch their neighborhoods go to the dogs, as the saying used to go, merely so that they can have trinkets and baubles while they avoid being called a name: racist, fascist, xenophobe. Why would anyone else respect us when we don't respect ourselves? We allow politically correct communist subversives to diversify our nations, even though diversity means less of us in our own nations and more of foreign outlander barbarians. Who can have even the most fleeting respect for such weakling people as us? Seriously. And this is why the blacks riot whenever they feel like it. This is why the other invaders simply come when they feel like it. This is why the Mexicans invade our lands with impunity. This is why every other form of minority has us, the majority, lawful citizens of our nations, afraid to say boo in our own homes at them. This is why a tiny minority of sodomites and other disgusting people have forced themselves upon us. It is because we don't respect ourselves enough or trust in anything like higher values enough to stand up against political correctness, diversity, and so-called equality. We lack the courage to tell the people who push it to push off and stay out. We have made a pact with death, and thus we are dying. It is because we have spiritually died inside that these people are running riot over our body as it rots. And thus, the Marxist liberal chickens are coming home in force. Those of you who do not wish for these chickens to make a mess of your home, of your hearth, of your heritage, will do well to find others who value hearth, heritage, white Western majority traditions, band together with them at the local level, and sidestep the parties, the market, and these social justice warriors' rules. Simply create your own person-to-person, peer-to-peer communities that are outside and beyond their control. Thank you. The parties are no reason to be joyous, for they are not held in your honor. We in the West are encouraged to believe that the political parties are opposites fighting it out over differing visions for the future. In truth, all allowed or major parties are driving our homelands to diversity and multiculturalism, using political correctness as a weapon to mentally browbeat us into accepting lower living standards and minority status. The parties are tools of the elite who are pushing multicult, political correctness, diversity, tolerance, feminism, sodomy, and the rest of the toxic soup called modernist, postmodern equality. Okay? It is one big race to the bottom of Sodom or Babylon. Thus, the parties are not at war at all, but in fact are merely the bookends of the allowed range of dissent, none of which upsets the elite apple cart in the least. In fact, they are quite useful to said elite. Or, if you will, they are the team of mules that pulls the elite PC multicult diversity train wreck along over your dead body, and that's literally if need be. Therefore, those that support the party support the elite that have subverted those parties, and they support their own subversion by the parties. We nationalists do not support either party. We reject the silly notion that being offered the choice between poison, a D, or the rope, an R, is a real choice. Both end in death. We reject the entire modern world, from individualism to legalism. It is all garbage as the family, which is the real basis for human society, not individuals. Family grows into a unique popular nation who form a particular state and have laws and ways fitting to themselves alone. That is truth. That is the real way. That is nationalism. That is the just way, the right, the proper way. We reject liberalism and modernity's entire premise that happiness, whatever that means, is the basis for a lasting popular national state. Again, the father, mother, child relationship are objective categories that imply duties, rights, and responsibilities towards each other beyond mere money gain or happiness, and these familial bonds encompass any real nation and state, as both the nation and the state are simply expressions of a given people who are a family or a family of families, if you will, each in their homes, each around a hearth, each taking care to pass down a heritage. We dissent from political correctness and multiculture precisely because they undermine the father, undermine the family, and endanger the child, home, hearths, and heritage of all our people. All that make us unique, political correctness, multiculture would strip from us, as it would shame us into submission. We refuse to tolerate and will not accept minority status in our own homelands, since this is the prelude to our destruction. No people allows any other people to occupy, overrun, or dictate terms to them upon their ancestral lands unless they are weak, pathetic, or insane. And thus, we must decline political correctness, modernity, liberalism's offer to be enriched by diversity and mass immigration in the lands of our rightful birth. Let them stay home and enrich each other there, since to do otherwise is to roll over and simply die out and become as though we had never been. Thus, the parties are not with us nationalists, nor we with them. We have parted ways, us and them. They have turned their backs upon us and seek to replace us. Verily, mass immigration is a new twist on an old idea called population transfer, whereby an empire uses one subject population to divide and police another. The net effect is that each subject population becomes divided, petty in outlook, and weak. The elite seek to do this because a divided commons is an easily ruled commons, while a unified people is not so easily kept low. The parties backed by the media and academia, who are all backed by the economic elite, support the most degenerate actions and behaviors, while they import alien, vile, vicious, barbarous savages from the third world in an attempt to destroy our traditions, our culture, and our identity. This is the plan the elite have in mind. If they can make it come to fruition is another matter altogether. They think they have put to bed all opposition. The fact is that these elites have everything all wrong. This is the truth. Unified societies based on duty and honor are stronger than multicultural country clubs based on personal advantage. This is because in a proper nation state, the bonds person to person are those of a familial type. They are based upon a proper understanding of one's duties towards oneself, one's family, one's community, and one's nation. They are understood to end full stop at the edge of the nation. These duties are not dependent upon dollars, as in fact, such mercantile behavior is foreign to honorable men. Properly unified national societies are based upon unified families, male and female, lifelong bonding pairs, and no other, which ideally identify with the first family, who are the founders of the nation. Said families form the basis for the people, who, through various manifestations, are the nation and the state, both being merely ends to ensure the people continue into the future and remember the past. Thus, the nation is ideally a family of families who possess a unified identity, heritage, and history. Their land is their home. Mass immigration is therefore home invasion foisted upon our people. This all follows naturally from the normal male-female bonding pair that function to create the chain of life that is a people. All people come from a mother and a father and from no other place. Therefore, all nations come from a family and from no other place. The people are the font of a culture and value system. They hold a land as their home and provide life, values, mores, laws, heritage, and history to the nation state. What is nationalism? What the nationalist believes. We nationalists believe that nationalism is a living structure that encompasses an entire holistic worldview, social, economic, and political. We nationalists believe in hierarchy under law, patriarchal sovereignty, and orderly authority as goods that exist for our best ends. We nationalists believe that inside our nation, some are simply more fit for certain tasks and that not everyone is equally capable, not even in theory. However, at the same time, we nationalists insist that inside of our nation we will act as a unitary whole family who will take care of our own as a family. The best have a duty to be proper stewards of the rest best ends is the simplest manner in which it may be expressed. We nationalists believe that from this natural familial order comes proper authority tempered by affections and justice. Thus, nationalism posits that from a unique first or ancestral family comes by natural stages of growth the self-aware, social, economic, and political unit which is the complete, whole-formed nation. We nationalists believe that the family must be sound for the nation to be founded upon solid, lasting, and stable foundations. Nationalism thus takes the family as a unit from which life comes, as there are no living persons who have not a biological mother and father. Nationalism affirms life by regarding life as a link in a chain that connects present to the past and future. We nationalists believe in life, and thus we must, of necessity, reject the sterile, liberal individual as the embodiment of death itself. We believe in family, for in family is life. Nationalism accepts that the family unit comes before any mythical individual. Nationalism places the family, child, community, and persons in that order of importance at the center of its thoughts, actions, and goals. We believe in our future over any liberal concepts or other legal dictum. We nationalists believe that the father is the center of authority in the family, the natural provider, defender, and ruler of the family, and that from his familial power flows the sovereignty of the national community as a whole family of families. We believe that the mother is the foundation of first the people as a whole, and secondarily a stable, lasting home with a hearth from which to pass down a meaningful heritage, which, when combined collectively, forms the culture of the nation. We nationalists believe that men and women are simply different in function, and that they do not compete by nature, but complement each other to the mutual advantage of all in the home, community, and nation. We accept this mystery that produces life, a great wonder. We nationalists further believe that the natural divided duties and authorities of the man and woman in the home are the basis for all civilized order, such order being required to rear children with the best chance of success relative to the survival of the nation. And let us make it clear, we nationalists believe that a nation is not any random pile of people in a given area, that is a disordered mob. A nation has a definite boundary, and there are those inside and outside its circle of concern. A nation is a community of families that act as one whole family of families, common good over selfish interests. Nationalism holds that each unique nation, while similar to others, within its racial grouping, in some, even many categorically measurable manners, are nevertheless unique and whole unto themselves, with their own land under their own laws. A community of like nations in loose confederation, we believe, is the future which nationalism will promote after it becomes the dominant worldview in the near term, as globalism forces nations to logger up in self-defense against its predations, social, economic. It is because of these beliefs that we nationalists state that nationalism values the natural division of labor between male and female to the end that the home and children may be sound and whole. Patriarchal order is the basis for all sound social order. No other truth is possible. Thus, feminism, liberalism, individualism, and consumerism are cancerous poisons which are killing our kind by increments. Nationalism promotes the natural ties family to family such that webs of supporting and strong communities may result by natural action of affections, and that in these communities welfare will be preserved, reserved for deserving members of our nation alone. We nationalists see no reason to support outlander people who just happen to reside in our lands. This is against all justice to demand from us. Nationalism openly proclaims that all economic activity is the result of some human action. Thus, there is no reason to treat the economy as some abstract entity apart from our own actions personally and as an aggregate. We further affirm that local is superior in every way over international, as we are more loyal to us than the cosmopolitans are loyal to anything. Nationalism only looks kindly upon those economic actions which benefit the nation, common good over selfish interests. Economics is not a magical being separate from society or politics. Economic acts have consequences. There is no right to impoverish the people for one's personal advantage, nor is there any right to destroy the homes or communities of the people for mere economic advantage. Nationalists openly declare the nation to be greater than any market, regardless of any other factor, since the people of the nation are the foundation upon which the market and all commerce operates. Economics are merely a tool the nation uses to its best ends, and if the tool is defective, then the nation shall fashion a new tool. Nationalism proudly states that we back and support the majority working and middle class who are the whipping boy of the modern PC system and who have been drugged behind the feminist cart for far too long. A strong nation is based upon well-employed fathers who can provide for families and upon stable mothers in homes providing for hearths, passing down heritages. Nationalism has no shame in promoting the common sense idea that any government that does not serve the nation's best ends as sketched above must be replaced by one that does. Nationalists insist that any government that cannot serve the nation is useless to the national well-being and must be altered, reformed, or abolished by those who can ensure life to the nationalist body. Nationalism demands loyalty, duty, courage, and honor from those that serve in any station, civic or otherwise. Nationalism demands dedication, respect, honesty, and frugal use of the public resources to the best ends of the national body, common good above selfish interest. Nationalists demand that any government or office official live up to these ideals in public and private life. We demand that loyal duty be a part of each man's mental domain, such that he is driven to courage and the honor his station befits. Nationalism demands that the men who have the loyalty and ability be given the means to rule justly, honestly, and with an eye to the best ends of the families who are the cells of the living national body. Nationalists demand that from these that they do their duty or be held to account. As their failure is the failure of the nation, there is no magic formula. Nationalists simply accept that the men with ability must be given the flexibility to operate to the nation's best ends. Nationalism therefore demands there be no divided loyalties with any outside party whatsoever. The nation and its institutions are the all in all for the nationalist. There is no honor in being disloyal to the nation. Governments may have to be defied at times, but the nation is the all in all to all loyal sons of the soil. Therefore, nationalism demands that any media, corporation, market, business, or other groups or persons be loyal to the nation or take themselves out of the national domain. Nationalists have zero toleration for subversion of our traditional way of life by anyone, be they carpetbaggers or scallywags. Nationalism is the future, based solely upon what worked in the past. Nationalists are perpetually finding new ways to use old formulas with lasting success in the day-to-day life of the nation. Nationalism is the Western future, the only belief system that values our future in and of itself, by and for itself. Nationalism is, in the end, family working to see family be well-founded. Nationalism, come join us. Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Now, today, folks, we're going to try to sum up the entire politically correct, multicultural, tolerance, diversity game, ride that we're all on in a few simple words. It comes down to the white, Western, European peoples, no matter where you live, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Europe itself, are being squeezed out in the name of a crazy cult called multicultural political correctness. Multicultural political correctness imports diversity, which is people of color or Islamics. Now, they import these people. And these people create chaos, and that chaos is called diversity. And the European people are expected to tolerate that, and that's essentially what tolerance is. It's panda bear-like tolerance of violence and chaos against your people. Now, we say that all of this is done so that a group of international thieves, usurers, bankers, moneylenders, many names, can rip us all off as they kill us off. The fact on the ground is that wherever you go in the West, particularly in the Anglo-speaking countries, you will be bombarded by nonsense. Diversity is our strength. Tolerance makes us stronger. We grow as we bring in more people in unity and all this other nonsense. Well, okay. Now, we are about teaching people to oppose this in their mind, first off. Now, because, what you think will determine how you act. I mean, that's pretty fundamental, wouldn't you say? Right. So that's what we're about. We're about saying, okay, this multicultural nonsense is wrong. It's wrong. And therefore, going along with its equality and we're all to be intolerant and diverse and all, is stupid, because you're simply going along with make believe, with fantasy. I mean, political correctness is gibberish assertions about oppression and white guilt and all that other crazy commie claptrap is exactly as real as a child's imaginary tea. Okay? It's just as real as that. So if you believe in the tea, political correctness will be for you. If, on the other hand, you know that you're pretending when you're at these tea parties, la-di-da, la-di-da, right? Now, myself, I know I'm pretending. And myself, I'm tired of pretending. Simply tired. We tire of this pretending as if tolerating these diverse barbarian hordes is some sort of enriching or a strengthening experience. It's anything but. It's exactly analogous to our people writ large having a cancerous growth on their liver and rejoicing, look, we're being enriched as our liver distends. Are you insane? You're going to die. You either need to cut off the growth or have a new liver transplanted. Those are your options, because the liver is extremely vital to your bodily functioning. And again, this political correctness, the tolerance, the diversity, it's crazy to watch it where people pretend it's this way, but we all know it isn't. And so what we're here to do, to make it simple, is to teach people to not give a goddamn, to pretend. To just, I mean, you pretend you're having tea with little kids because you want to pacify them, But little kids don't want to force crazy hordes of Islamics and blacks and browns on you that want to kill and genocide you. Now, do they? So it's a little different when you're patty caking along with these crazy leftists. They literally want to wind up these Black Lives Matter, these Mecca jihadists, these brown La Raza people. Wind them up like a wind-up monkey. Let them go on you, have them try to kill you, and then scream at you about how you have to tolerate the diversity. Just say no to this level of insanity, people. That's what we're here. We're here to teach you to be able to just say, no, I won't tolerate any more diversity. No, I don't want any of your multiculture. Yes, I do like white Western people. Yes, I do prefer white Western culture. Yes, I liked my living area when it was white, when it was Christian, and when it was civilized. That's what we're here. We're here to teach you, basically, to speak out. There are 100 little things that people can say, But the idea is that this entire liberal, communist, political correct world order out here, it all depends on people being silent in public and cowering down. Don't be silent. Don't cower down. Don't live under them. See how simple that is? Speak out, stand up, leave their plantation. I guess we can make it as easy as that. Speak out, stand up, leave their plantation. You see? Because the one thing that the PC people cannot abide is being told that they're running around completely naked in the snow like crazy people and they're about ready to die of hypothermia. Thank you. Hello, folks. How y'all doing today? Today, folks, we would like to talk about why we do what we do. Since, folks, it can be quite a labor, which can consume quite a great amount of our time. However, we think the time well spent in so much as it helps to defend, conserve, and restore our personal home, hearth, and heritage, and by extension, our community's commonality of language, culture, and purpose. and thus, from this foundation, to rebuild the nation from root system to branch, since the family and community are the root from which we all spring, and whose vitality and health reflect and affect our own. To come to brass tacks, we do this because we remember white, rural, small town America. Did you think we were going to dance around it? And we want that small town community back out of the rubble that is multiculturalism, political correctness, diversity, tolerance, and enforced equality. We want white, close knit communities in which to live life under our own laws, in our own way, in our own land. It's real simple. We are quite aware of what we are saying, and we are very, very lucid. We, having been old enough to evaluate the relative value of small town, rural, white America versus urban, suburban, multicultural America, have found the latter wanting, and find ourselves wanting mightily the former. Put more easily, rural white America is greater than suburban multicultural America or urban diverse America. One is the real America, and the other a cheap retread. We remember rural America. It was an endearing, peaceful, orderly, and settled place. Oh, to be sure, there was a touch more generational impoverishment in that time than there is now, but everyone was essentially working class or lower middle class. And to put it nicely, there was more community spirit, so there was less need of welfare. On the whole, 95+% of these people, regardless of class, were hardworking, honest, good, loyal people who loved God, family, and nation in that order, and around whom your person and property were 100% safe. These people in the main respected the law, had proper respect for authority, and most of all were united around their common family and community identity, which identity acted as the foundation for their national identity as white America, for white America, with pride in white America. Contrast this to the wasteland that is modern suburban multicultural America and diverse urban America. The differences are frankly stark and startling, giving rise to our honest observation that the crime-filled hovels where poverty is the rule and where now life is violent, dirty, and retrograde are in no way an improvement over the old rural, orderly, clean country town of old. Such people and communities, which may or may not exist on paper under the aegis of the 2.0 America, are simply not in any manner an improvement over old white America's orderly and clean manner of living. They are not in any way a strength, nor enriching, being divided and squalid, filled with chaos, and lacking anything like proper respect for authority and leadership. This is because the 2.0 on-paper multicultural America is merely a whorehouse, a business proposition even, a nation in name only, lacking in anything like an identity. Thus it has no solid foundation, and it has predictably become a ruin. This ruin is filling fast with the hordes of the third world who contend for the rubble that was once our exclusive living space. When is enough enough? When do we, the remnant of the Western people here in America, really everywhere, finally simply turn our posteriors upon this mess and let it fall under its own weight? When do we put our backs to rebuilding for us, by us, and leave this wreckage to decay, molder, and rot? Without us, this house of cards will topple. Why do we continue to hold it up when the world is ours after it falls? Why? What is there in it for us in this continued struggle to hold up the death cult which hates our life and wants us dead? Truly, we know we cannot be the only person who has had the good luck to have been born in old rural white America and to prefer its quiet, peaceful, honest way of life to the barbarous, savage violence of the multiculture. Truly, we know that many that have made it this far want what we talk about, even if only by second hand. We know we cannot be the only one. We simply cannot. We know that we are not the only one who honestly prefers the common bonds of identity based on families, solidly in homes around hearths, passing on heritages. Said families well established in a community within which they have the bond of a common culture and language, the binding ties of a shared history, and the deep-cut channels of a well-established way of life. strong communal bonds which frankly grew out of the biological commonality among the people. They were in fact expressions of our core tribal identity of our people. This commonality gave comfort and a sense of one's place in a greater living, breathing, organic social order. Multiculture provides none of this. Dead, lifeless tombs full of rotten bones is all it provides. We know that we are not the only one who prefers the quality life of small, rural town living to political correctness with its intolerable tolerance and empty slogans about barbarian foreign diversity being our strength. We know that we are not the only person who utterly rejects the lie that tolerating barbarism will make us anything but victims of criminality. We know that the enforced tolerance of the enriching diversity is nothing else but the destruction of our biological identity, as our murderers force our replacements upon us using shaming words and legal decrees. This destruction of our biological integrity is the final act in the destruction of our community and cultural identity. We know we are not the only one that sees this fact and thinks we must resist this as we have only this one unique identity. It is ours. There is no others who are us. None. To us, our identity, community, and biological commonality are things to be cherished and loved, since they give us a strong foundation and provide us with our all in all, family, community, nation. The multiculture provides only demands death and destruction. The politically correct multiculture is a threat to our homes, families, and our nations. For us, there is no choice. We cling openly and with pride to those we love, and just as openly reject those who threaten the things we love. For who can choose death over life? Who willingly chooses to see those things he cherishes trampled into the dust by savage hordes of Congo cannibals? Who? Not me, and not you, and not any sane, rational person. Therefore, our goal is to reach those sane, rational people who share a desire for restoring rural white America, and to build a critical mass until there is enough depth to our ranks that we can simply walk away from PC. We will simply self-select for opting out of their multicultural plantation. We work here to free the mind so that the body can follow the mind's lead. Yes, in the end, the goal is to simply leave PC and its insane white guilt, color depression, and never-ending compensation schemes behind in the dust. Since the salient fact is that white folks in America do not need diversity. The diversity exists on our labors, not the other way around. We whites are our own all in all, and that's the truth. White America was strong and great when we openly identified with our biological heritage as part of our cultural and community identity, when we had laws in place to keep and preserve our majority over our lands, when we had no shame in being the master of our own national destiny. We know we're not the only one who thinks and feels this way, but we also know that many are silenced by fear of losing their jobs, parental rights, visitations with children, or just so simple as their social status. We know and we try to understand and be understanding of these fears that keep the masses silent in the face of ever-growing outrages upon reason, good sense, and common decency. It is our sense that the politically correct, multicultural, tolerant, diverse system depends upon our equal individual silence in the face of these continuing outrages. It depends on our accepting publicly its insane proclamations about diversity, about white guilt, about compensation for slavery, about holy victims of hatred and aggression, about genocides, and about all the other insane psychobabble which is the stock and trade of the media, academic, political class, who act as the lance for the international multicultural system and its moneybags who finance the entire operation. The lie depends, to put it simply, upon our pretending the naked communists have clothes. It depends on our lying to ourselves and each other about politically correct multicultural psychobabble, which in truth many, if not most of us, reject, hate, and despise. The first step in overcoming this web of lies is to openly state that white America, the object of the PC cult's hatred, was, is, and always will be better in every way than their 2.0 multicultural, diverse, tolerant Panda Bear America. Overcoming their lies depends upon us being able to say that only a panda bear homosexual eunuch would tolerate being enriched by barbarian diversity as it kills their people, their communities, and their unique national identity. The rest of us real Western men want white America back. This, in short, folks, is why we do what we do. The basic goal here is to keep our home, hearth, and heritage while protecting our family, community, and nation. We personally intend to outlive the current system, and we intend to rebuild from the ruins if need be. Why we do what we do? It is as easy as rural, small town living. That is why we do what we do. If you're interested in more of what we do and would like to see done, subscribe to the YouTube channel, visit our blog, or download the Organic Theory of Society PDF at the links provided below. Thank you. Have a nice day. Freely freed from freedom, 'tis only free until it hurts a minority. I'm so glad we live in a free society where we can freely express our opinions about race, nation, and the reality of things about us. It is good that we, unlike those evil, closed societies, those societies in which terrible tyrants and authoritarians force one by legal decree and social force to follow a party line or else. Otherwise, in a closed society, we might have a media that takes sides against the majority white people based upon an ideological narrative that makes the majority whites wrong by default and all minorities innocent and pure. We might have a closed media that allowed no dissenting voices. Can you imagine? Otherwise, we might have closed college and university campuses upon which only one point of view is allowed, and that is to be the one that it is against tradition and the white majority's interests, without exception and without question. Again, imagine if we did not have our freedoms keeping this from happening to us. Otherwise, in a closed society, we might end up with a closed loop two-party system that is 100% in lockstep with the media and academics against the white majority, and who actively work against us in our face while daring us to object. Otherwise, we just may end up with thousands of single soccer mom squads that hunt down and hound out all dissent from the job, home, social media, social environment of all kinds, and act as the lance for all the above. Otherwise, people could even start being fired from jobs for having the wrong opinions. Yes, imagine if we were not free. This just might start happening. Hardly imaginable, right? Otherwise, people might find that they have to toe a party line or they are carted off to diversity and sensitivity training. Could never happen here. Can I get an amen? Otherwise, people might find that they cannot say or even at times admit honestly to thinking about those things the authorities have placed outside the limits drawn for such peons as them, or they will be non-personed by the media and even to a large extent non-personed by their own family and friends. I know it is hard to imagine, isn't it? Otherwise, it's just all unthinkable. Boy, it is good we defeated those evil closed societies. Imagine if we had all the above. One shudders to even think about it. Hello, folks. From darkness came forth the light. to begin with. We are not unaware of our personal limitations, nor do we have pretensions about being well educated. In fact, quite the contrary. But we are compelled to make a better mode of life possible by implanting a desire for said mode of life in the hearts of our people. We do this since we are assured by our heart that this is the correct course of action, believing as we do that faith is of the heart, and faith and not reason is the means to the divine, which divine plays a very real and intimate role in human affairs, great and small. Deus vult, God wills it. We have seen in our mind's eye that the decline of the faith runs hand in hand as one with the decline of our people into the morass that is modernist, materialist, nihilism, and hedonistic apathy. We see that to survive, we must be reborn. To this end, this great effort of ours is meant to be a spiritual as well as socio-economic regrowth, a fully holistic, rejuvenistic program meant as the ideological basis for strengthening the family ideal, such that this primary unit can be the proper base for a strong civilizational order, so that the family may once more ensure the long-term survival of the people. We are, all of us, lost in the wilderness, hungering for richer fare and thirsting for our home springs. We are all, one to the other, future family, all lost folk, seeking homes, hearths, and to save our Western heritage from the hordes of politically correct modernity and its usurious, materialist, atheist system of death worship. PC modernity is, to be very clear, an oligarchy that we linger under. Yes, we merely linger now. Let that soak in a more full way, so that one can fully appreciate the contrast between what is, this lingering under this liberal PC modernist death cult, and what was and can yet be again life in a family of families celebrating life. What is right now is, of course, the liberal, modern, individualistic, happiness-based order, which, lingering along, tries desperately to uphold the false idea that maximal happiness is the measure of all things. However, being based upon false premises, it is a failure. It is doomed to die a drawn-out death of its own accord. What was, and therefore what can yet be again, is something rather more like our proposed organic society, an integral familial nation in which duty and justice ensure the families that make up the nation are well founded in homes around hearths, passing down stable, lasting heritages. The whole ensures to the parts their best interest, so that the parts may ensure to the whole's best interest. The nation ensures the family, each singly and all as one whole, a stable home in which to preserve the heritage and the history of the people. Thus, a well-founded order is one in which the continuance of the kind is primary over happiness or any other consideration. The highest consideration are families in homes around hearths, passing down heritages to children who then form families of their own. This is life-based. This is life-affirming. However, sadly and tragically, many associate nationalism and the topics we approach with hate and displays which are part of a bygone age. To be fair, this is partially our own fault, as we have provided no sound basis for countering this doppelganger image, and have basically allowed this media doppelganger, this golem, this creation of theirs, to be our public image. Let us state it plainly. This is a work of love, not hatred. we refuse to concede this point to the forces of modernity. Nationalism is about family, home, hearth, and heritage. Nationalism has nothing to do with most of the things the media and academics attach to its cards. They are the hateful ones trying day and night to steal, despoil, and kill our kind against all good right. We, on the other hand, are animated by love for our kin, for our home, our history, and our living people, who are a blood group, a nation descended from the Western European peoples who grew up out of the Ice Age. Though members of the people will try our patience at times, we still appreciate this heritage, this wholeness, this soundness. Our concern comes naturally from the concern one feels for his own home and family. We thus naturally expect results that are beneficial to our people's best ends. Now, we are the living. We love our people. They are the dead. They hate. Honestly, folks, we do view it as inadequate and unsatisfactory that at this late hour, the mass of our people should have such a poor opinion and view of nationalism and the aims it promotes, which again are family, home, hearth, heritage, the continuance of our kind in the face of our children, and your children, and his children, and their children. Do you understand? Thus, we need, point blank, need normal, motivated, decent folks organized into community-based bands pushing forward towards an organic society among the majority population, since all the objective conditions exist for a stable, viable mass movement based on the historical traditions of the majority, except an organization to capitalize upon said conditions. We see that for this to come about, nationalists must be as motivated and just as committed to our cause as those in power were before they came into power. We must set aside the modern world and embrace truth and reality. We must become the gatekeepers of our own narrative, write our own story on the hearts of our faithful, and take those people back from the death cold. We owe our people the duty to protect them from the false and useless prophets and idols of the death cult, as we are unlike those proper shepherds to our people and brothers to our kin, keepers of our kind. We owe loyalty first and foremost to those, closest related by blood, then by custom. Okay? This is not a choice. This goes back into millennia. It goes right back to the defend the cave principle. Thus, to make it a little more formal, we have every proper rightful duty to our nation, which is a blood group again. It's not just any old hapstance bunch of people who happen to be in a country. That's a country club. That's chaos. I want none of it. A nation is the German, English, Scottish, Irish, mixed people of Americans. Those are a nation. White Americans. White Canadians are a nation. Australians are a nation. They don't have this problem. It's multicult yet. English are a nation. Welsh are a nation. Irish, Northern, Scots-Irish, etc., and so on. Right. Now, all of these people inside of these nations have every proper duty to those nations, and when they conflict with others, c'est la vie. That's life. But for the person born into a nation, that's where your first, your last, and your every just duty should be owed. Do you see? Just that easy. If your country conflicts with your nation, your country's wrong. Your nation is the spring from which you have sprung, and if you shut off its flow, you cease to flow. I want to make this clear that I personally have no real ambition here. In fact, when this is all over, I would like to be the man on the hill left alone so I can just relax. Okay. As we see no great promotion in the future, we're driven, though, at this juncture to do all in our power so that from the rubble on the right, on the general right-wing, conservative, populist, traditionalist, nationalist end of European, American, Canadian, Anglo, everybody who can understand me natively, politics, we do this so that from that rubble may arise a more broad-based, realistic, virile, socially acceptable to the masses, economically viable, and politically motivated movement, real movement that moves somewhere, which will better organize these people to survive as integral, whole, familial, proper Western European nations. Our survival of a unique people is my only and highest end. Oh, am I failed as a human being? Everyone is. We do what we can. Now, we may or may not have succeeded in these lofty and arrogant sounding goals, and much may, no, yet, no, not may, in fact, does need to be done. Yet we are hopeful that those with a fair mind will come away with a fuller understanding of the material that we're trying to present and the motivations behind it. Now, basically, there's a PDF. It's called the Organic Theory of Society. Okay, I've sort of paraphrased parts of it to you in this, and the general outline of the document is that there's a dedication introducing the whole background of this and who I find to be important historically, and you'll get the feel for me. Me and Jesus would be good friends. I would have been there beating the users. What the hell, Jesus? Give him another. But you can't let scum take control of your money. And then there's a prologue, and for me, that lays out sort of the tutors, which is because I'm from the English world. My people were sent here because of the Jacobite rebellion in the first instance. So, and then from there, basically, how that grew into what we call the model world in a very casual way, with very little fixation on any specifics. It's relatively simple. You'll see. Now, from there, there's another 3 chapters, and they hammer on the family, from the point of view of society, politics, economics. And there's a 4th chapter that is essentially a proposed bulletin point outline of sort of in the Anglo-speaking world and rural United States particularly, but any place with a fair amount of resources and manpower, you could band together, form legal associations, perform legal work, do legal political activity, perform legal media activity, agitprop, legal educational work for yourself, and pool all this together into sovereignty, power at a local level for yourselves. You might even think of it like the Mennonites in a way, but okay. And as far as I can determine, it's perfectly legal within limits to, all of you get together and work, then sell what you've worked, and save the capital. And it seems right. It does seem like this has been being done for a very long time. And basically, there's a link at the bottom. If you'd like, read it. Now, so you understand, this document is not perfect. There's a lot there, but the idea is the pictures will help you through this. I promise you, right? If you grasp what the little circles and interlocked items mean, we will have a meeting of the minds, you and I, okay? Right? If you simply can follow the flow charts, the words will come into meaning to you in time. I promise you. I promise you. I understand. I didn't write this. Let me make this clear. It wrote itself through me, but it is here, and and in the pursuit of a set of first principles of a sort of fixed script, this is what I present, and we thank you. Multiculture. Multiculture is an invasive bramble, a virus to the Western world, a cancerous growth. It has wrought pain and suffering upon the majority, in the name of the false idols of equality, diversity, tolerance, and inclusion. Equality is a lie. If it was true, then the third world barbarians would be equally well off in their own lands away from the racist nations, i.e., wealthy Western countries. The West is not in any way equal to the third world. This is a disgusting fib that grows more distasteful with the telling. Human groups are not equal. Some human populations are high IQ, capable people, and some live in mud huts cared for by witch doctors. There is no equality in nature, not racial equality, not gender equality, no equality. That's reality. Diversity. Diversity means everyone but the white majority. It is presented by the delusional left as a strength, but it is in fact a crippling weakness that encourages factionalism. Factionalism among the ever-increasing number of identities in the West ensures weakness to the Western people, who are supposed to have no identity among the soup of diverse identities fighting for power in this factional struggle. Thus, strength is in unity of identity, not diversity. All stable, long-lasting states are monoethnic and monocultural. Tolerance. Tolerance is the virtue of the panda bear, the highest good of the weak second rates who have no values worth defending. It is absolutely offensive to any man who has his honor, it being, after all, the virtue of the pimped out prostitute. Verily, who else so fully symbolizes the consumerist tolerance culture than the whore who accepts all paying customers? Tolerance is the highest good of Sodom and the best end of Babylon. Inclusion. Inclusion is a seemingly harmless word that fronts for the ongoing mass immigration invasion of the West by low IQ equals from diverse, poverty-stricken, disease-ridden places of the third world, whose poor behaviors the Western people are expected to tolerate as an enrichment. Those vibrantly impoverishing, diverse hordes who we are supposed to tolerate as they destroy, rape, rend, and otherwise have it over us in our own homelands. Just lay back and think of the multiculturalism the loony left said. This mass inclusion of the minorities of the world and the unspoken exclusion of the white majority in our own homelands is supposed to bring us to some utopia. That magical nowhere place where equality, diversity, and tolerance will rule. In theory, but in reality, this merely ensures that majority whites have to live desperate, impoverished lives among barbarian savages, dangerous and violent savages, whose benefits to whites seem to include running down our standard of living, endangering our lives, sacking our civilization, eradicating our cultural heritage, our hegemony, our biological uniformity, and our pride. Oh, those massive benefits. What would we do without it? It is meant by inclusion that we, the majority whites, are supposed to give authority to minorities over the majority, who are to be systemically excluded. Thus, and only thus, can be achieved the demographic, political, economic, and cultural exclusion of whites in white Western lands, i.e., inclusion. Only then can utopia cometh, and that is what is meant, that we will be excluded while others are included. However, in truth, this nowhere around us is a ruin. It has fallen into its foundation before the capstone was set, because the foundation, the multicultural foundation, was always rotten. This replacement of the majority is justified
by the multiculturalists on two fronts. First, the majority, we are led to believe, are comprised of evil reactionary racists who won't tolerate being enriched by the vibrant diversity meant to be included. And racism is, after all, the worst of all sins. And secondly, upon the circular logic that only racists object to the multiculture's assumptions about equality, diversity, tolerance, and inclusion. Only racists fail to understand how diversity will make them poorer and divide up their lands and will help them become richer because of racism. You see, poor people make you richer, and if you don't believe that, racist. Actual leftist logic in action. Frightening, isn't it? The multiculture, you see, is based upon many, many lies. But the biggest lie of multiculture is that we are all one. This is a palpable lie. To put it bluntly, the media, schools, and churches lie to majority whites so they can gain lucre from the Pharisees who oversee the multiculture and its minority minions. They are either, these people who lie to the white majority, active traitors to both their people, their history, their homes, their hearts, their heritage, their community, and to Christ, or they are weaklings who have become both hot and cold and need to be spewed forth as they are useless to all. The fact is that identity politics is the reality of the multicult. The melange of peoples in the West are only one in the sense that one race is supposed to carry all the burden of the multiculture, and that race is white. Male, heterosexual, of course, being the social constructs attached to that, which is presumed to have the duty of supporting multiculturalism's spawn forever. And these mere social constructs, these mere whites, must always know that they are set apart by white guilt and the shame and horror of historical and institutional racism. Oh, market, forgive us. The whites must know that they are set apart and yet have no identity except as a source of guilt, shame, and submission. Everyone, except the white majority, however, and everyone particularly except for the white straight male, is told that they not only do, but in fact must have a racial, a gender, ethnic, or other victimized identity to use to lord it over the guilty whites. And an identity in which to have pride and to rally around, so that they might fight for the spoils of the Western civilization as a block against the evil, oppressive, white, patriarchal majority males, blah, 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 and their repressive family structure, which males, whites, society, culture, and families are only admitted to exist by these lunatic leftists when they are demonized, degraded, or under attack by them. Now, the fact, folks, is that we are told day in and day out that we, the majority whites, should have no identity or historical pride. We are just a faceless mass whose history and identity do not matter, and in fact, that only evil Nazis, KKK, racists are even concerned with pride, identity, or any of that icky, creepy stuff. We're told that daily, and whites have had it pounded into them that any in-group loyalty by whites towards other whites is racism. However, it is only whites who are expected to pretend that they have no in-group loyalty or collective interests as a racial ethnic group with others of their racial and ethnic background, okay? Everyone else is, again, not only encouraged to be in-group loyal, the minorities are actually rewarded for doing so with set-asides and affirmative action, which are preferences for non-white, non-male, non-Christian persons by any other name. See, the sad fact is that the multicultural utopia would not work if the whites acted as a group too and defended their lands from the invading hordes of brown, yellow, and black locusts consuming the West. If the whites would not be the workhorse, then the work would not get done, and the multiculture would have to enrich itself along the Congo River in mud huts. The whites must, you see, according to the multi-cult, be guilty and labor. Laboring under guilt is the PC ideal for whites. Not mine, but that's what they want. You see, this demand for unending white guilt labor results in the absurd social, political demand, among 1,000 others, that whites be demonized for, again, doing, thinking, and feeling exactly what the minorities among them do, namely, banding together to get a piece of the identity political power. The further conclusion of this absurd farce is that whites have been conditioned to seek the praise of those minorities and leftists who seek to pillage, rape, and despoil their once great homelands to death. Madness as a virtue. Let us drop the curtain on this sad, sorry production and ban it from our lives forever. This starts with ceasing to compromise with the left's values and by frankly stating that we, the majority whites, have group interests, which interests stand head and shoulders above any make-believe nonsense about humanity, equality, diversity, tolerance, or inclusion, which simply put are a chimera chasing a griffin sighted by a unicorn reported upon by Nessie. The uncompromising truth is that white Western peoples' best long-term interests do not lay with multiculture's imaginations about equality, diversity, tolerance, or inclusion. Humanity is unworthy. Equality is a lie. Diversity is a disease. Tolerance is timidity. Inclusion of the world is exclusion of those that embrace such a fool's errand. These are the way to death. These are a bane, not a boon. These are the values of those who wish our doom. And that is not in our best interest at all, my people. Our best interests are served by us unifying. Unified for us. Strength in unity. Diversity is death. Unity is life. Multiculture is for unworthy, lying, diseased, timid cucks that want to exclude themselves. We won't, thanks. We want us. We want our land under our laws while we live by the light of our own culture, united as one majority, united for life.